Folks, it's the one-year anniversary of PM in the AM, the Metro South Morning Show, being on the air, and someone who's been a frequent guest over the past 12 months is a man who first came on our show not to announce he was running for mayor, but to announce there was an announcement which potentially could have been that he was running for mayor, which turned out to be that he was running for mayor. And now he is the mayor of Brockton.
It's my same approach to getting married. I'm pre-engagement.
How's that working out?
Yeah, how's that working out? Hopefully this mayor thing does a little better. It's the mayor of Brockton, Bill Carpenter, joining us in studio right now. Good morning, Bill, and welcome back to the program.
1 year at PM in the AM. I can't believe it.
Well, 1 year indeed.
Seems like longer. You're almost like an institution already.
We're institution after 12 months. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's
a good thing, right?
It's exciting to be here. It's great. You know, we did go for a little while with the station not being on the air, and I know you guys have worked very hard to bring it back, and I'm happy because you know, the local radio station is a big part of the community here, and particularly for someone who's involved in local government now and has always been involved in both radio and politics and sports. You know, this is where the folks in the city can get the local news, sports, what's going on in the schools. I remember raising my 6 kids here in the city, and you know, part of our morning routine, getting the kids ready for school in the morning, was listening to Student Showcase with Charlie Bergeron in the morning, and our next guest, Betsy Zulis-Clegg, doing the news, and Charlie doing the morning drive, and that was a big part of the family in the morning, getting ready to go to school. So it's very important to the folks here in the city, and it's great to have you guys back on.
And outside of being a listener to a local radio, you partaked in local radio. You hosted the Newsline program on Friday mornings for a long time at the old WBET, was the voice of Brockton Boxers football. I did not realize this. You were the last ever radio personality on WBET and the first on WXBR. Explain that for a moment.
Well, Bob Buckley claims all that fame, but
Bob Buckley's in the studio right now.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Well, Buck and I were broadcasting Brockton High football, and was it the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl, the Everett Brockton Super Bowl that they lost.
Yeah, so during the Super Bowl game, the station actually changed its call letters in the middle of the game. So I think for the first half we were WBET, and then we came back in the second half, signed on as WXBR.
A little known fact.
So we were. I'm glad you guys brought that up, because I had kind of forgotten about that and all this other stuff that's been going on.
How about this fact? I believe that Bill was the only radio personality ever to broadcast on WBZB.
Oh, that's right. Yes. We did a game on WBZB. That's right.
It was your talk show. I think we went to WBZB. Got a
wonderful
the talk
show. I remember using those call letters one day. Yep. That's right. Yeah.
We got a wonderful cease and desist order from the 50,000-watt flamethrower in Boston, and our general manager freaked out and said, "We're nothing for the next hour." And you said, "Welcome back to nothing." And then we became WBET again like an hour or two later.
It's been a fun ride over the years, huh?
Yeah, it has been a fun ride.
But it's great to have a little stability again here now. So. And you guys are great in the morning, and, you know, as much as I can, I try to catch you.
Well, we want to acknowledge to the folks listening that we will have you back in the next few weeks to go more in-depth with a lot of stuff, because we do have limited time today.
You know, the most impressive thing this morning was the fact he had Newbie here at 6:30, because I never see him before 8:30 at City Hall.
It was the breakfast.
Well, you don't provide breakfast at City Hall, do you, for him?
Yeah, I guess that's the key, huh? Yep. Kind of like a stray dog. If I feed him, he might show up once in a while. Huh? Yeah.
I don't know where we possibly go.
He's always on time, but at 8:30, I couldn't believe it when I was driving the car this morning, 6:30, and heard him on with you. I said, "My God, I've never seen him that early in the morning." And he works for me.
It's the breakfast.
You're listening to AM 1460, the new WXBR, Brockton. A broadcast service of Azor Media, LLC.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing nowadays. You're 3 months into your term as the mayor of Brockton.
No, not even. Only about 9 to 10 weeks.
Not even 3 months. Enjoying yourself?
It's
been a wild ride for these first 3 months.
Well, you know, it's exciting. You know, we've certainly you know, it's been we've some days are more eventful than others, and most of them there's usually something happening. But I mean, overall, it's exciting, Peter, because I think we're making changes, and I think that's why you know, folks voted for me. They wanted to see some changes, and I think that as time goes on, you'll start to see the results of those changes. But I'm excited about coming to work every morning, and you know, I am there at 6:30, long before Newbie gets there, and usually out late at night. But I'm trying really hard to make positive changes in the city, to deliver on some of the themes that we talked about during the campaign. And you know, what's really interesting about the job is that you know, Buck goes to great lengths to schedule every minute of my life, And, we come in and start first thing in the morning. The day never turns out the way it's supposed to. So, there's always, there are always things happening during the course of the day, and you shift and you adjust, and it's exciting.
Things never go as planned when we have you on the air either. We always blow through weather news. We go late, and we accept that as being part of the Bill Carpenter experience. When we first had you on the program, when you were seemingly announcing that you'd be running for mayor, I noted that...
The pre-announcement.
The announcement. I noted that people close to you said to you, do you know what you're getting yourself into?
Yeah. Well, they still say that to me.
Did you know what you got yourself into?
I had a pretty good idea, sure. I think that I think I've been around long enough, and I've been on the school committee for a couple terms, so I was directly involved in municipal government, and on the school committee I worked directly with the mayor, and I've certainly been friendly with the last few mayors, so I think I had a real good idea. I would have to say if there was one thing that I was surprised about, that I've been surprised about, is probably just that the pace is even a little faster than I might have imagined it. I knew it was fast, but it's really fast. There's not a minute of the day there's not, someone waiting on hold, someone waiting outside the door, or we're running out the door to make an appearance somewhere. So the days actually fly right by, but the pace is fast. But I really appreciate the fact I've got some good people working around me who work really hard on my behalf.
Let's talk about some of the issues which are currently within your administration. Chief Bob Hayden has been a topic of conversation in the city of Brockton.
Sure has. He's amazing.
News is coming out. He's taking a bit of a pay decrease.
I'll tell you exactly what happened. The game plan when I appointed Bob to his 60-day interim term, the game plan was for him to freeze his Boston pension, which would allow his health insurance to go on COBRA. He would pay his health insurance premiums directly, and we would reimburse him 75% instead of paying 75% towards Brockton insurance, which we would normally do. Everyone was agreed to it. A phone call was made into the Boston Retirement Board. We were told it could be done. Lo and behold, a month later, when they're actually implementing it, a big red flag goes up at the Retirement Board that causes us to revisit the whole thing. And over the course of a couple of weeks, the CFO and the city solicitor are talking to PRAC, which is the State Retirement Board, and the Boston Retirement Board. And the issue that was identified was that because of Bob's age, he doesn't have the traditional health insurance. He has retiree health insurance, which means he has Medicare and a Medicare supplement, the same way that we do City of Brockton employees when they retire. But Medicare would be his primary medical carrier. That's who would be paying a lot of his claims. And under Medicare, you can't be working full-time and collecting Medicare benefits. Medicare is for when you're retired. So we had to revisit the whole thing. And ultimately, what was established would be the best arrangement for Bob and for the city is for him to limit his income to the allowable amount under his current pension. So he would not freeze his pension. He's keeping his Boston pension. He's keeping his Boston health insurance, which we are no longer going to contribute towards. And we just set his salary at the maximum he's allowed to earn under the state formula, which is $51,600. So at the end of the day, Bob is taking a hit financially to do this job for us for a year from what he expected to make. It's a win for the taxpayers of the city of Brockton who get this dynamic leader for a fraction of what he should be being paid.
Does he have any reservations about that?
No, he didn't hesitate for a second. So we're now only paying him $51,000 with no benefits rather than $149,000 with benefits. So it's a savings of $100,000 to the city. We still get the same guy. Now, in the formula, theoretically, he works 960 hours a year. But, it's flexible time. He can work when he feels like it. So the reality is he works as much as anybody does, if not more. And in terms of the day-to-day operations of the Brockton Police Department, keep in mind that from day one, every chief has had a number two person called a chief of operations. And just as the preceding chiefs had, Chief Haden appointed Lieutenant Crowley to be his chief of operations. So Lieutenant Crowley is in the office full-time, and the chief of operations does the day-to-day administrative part of operating the police department is always pretty much done by the chief of operations anyhow. So Crowley is there doing that aspect of the job. Chief Hayden is here to lead, to inspire, to set policy, to make big decisions, to reconfigure the police department. And he's doing all of those things. I mean, just look at the morale on the police department has soared since he took over. You can see a noticeable increase in the presence of the police around the city. They are making, major busts on a regular basis. He's beefed up the detective division. He's beefed up the narcotics unit. And I think the thing that has impressed probably most of the officers is he's out there working alongside of him. I mean, he's always jumping in a car and riding with somebody. And he's out on the streets and he's talking to his people. And, I've had nothing but tremendously positive feedback about the difference he's made in the police department. And more importantly, the difference he's made in our city already in about 5 weeks.
Now, there's an ordinance hearing tonight in relation to Chief Hayden. First off, how do you expect that to go? And second off, when you talk about what is essentially a pay decrease, do you think that helps some of the opponents to the idea of having Chief Hayden as a member of the Brockton Police Force maybe come around because of the fact it's not going to cost taxpayers as much as they
I know that a couple of the councilors had cited cost as a reason that they objected to the ordinance. I never really went along with that because I think all I did was hire a police officer, and everyone wants us to hire more cops. They just seem to have a problem with hiring this cop. But, in my view, all I was doing was hiring an additional police officer. But I guess for those councilors that were concerned with additional money in the police budget, I don't think that's much of an argument anymore. $51,000 is less than we pay a patrolman.
So what do you expect to come out of tonight's hearing?
Well, the original ordinance, we submitted 2 amendments at the time we had the hearing, as you mentioned, 3-4 weeks ago now. When we had the original hearing, I offered 2 amendments that night due to issues that were raised by the councilors, and they were very valid issues. I felt that in terms of the Ordinance Committee, which is 5 members of the City Council, chaired by Councilor Ian Erie, we had a long hearing, but I thought it was a full and fair hearing. I thought the questions asked by the councilors were all fair and thoughtful and helped us develop the ordinance a little bit better. So we offered 2 amendments that night. One, which is the real key one, is the sunset provision, which basically is language in the ordinance that says that after this civilian police commissioner completes his term, the ordinance, fades away. It can't be used again in the future. The other amendment that we did was setting some minimum qualifications so that theoretically I couldn't, hire my brother-in-law to be the police commissioner. So we offer both of those amendments, and I expect them to be incorporated into the ordinance by the committee, and they may tweak them a little bit, and that's fine. This is their job to do the due diligence with it before they send it up to the full council. I did now send them another amendment on Friday to reflect the change in pay for Chief Hayden that we just discussed. So the original ordinance called for him to earn a salary of $149,000. I sent them an amendment that says he only earns $51,600. So my hope, and I'm cautiously optimistic, is that it coming out of tonight's ordinance committee will be a version of the ordinance that probably incorporates those changes, that has a sunset provision that sets the minimum requirements for the job and adjusts the salary down to $51,600, and that'll be sent up to the full city council. Now, whether it's favorable or unfavorable, I don't know, because I think there's only going to be 4 members there tonight. I believe that Councilor Cruz is out of town, and he's one of the 5 members of the committee. So it could be sent up with neither. If it's a 2-2 vote, I guess it goes up with no recommendation. But I would hope that the councilors would send it up with a favorable recommendation, and then it can be vetted out further by the full city council when it gets there.
We had a Brockton City Council president.
I'll tell you one thing. After all that long explanation, the people in the city want Chief Hayden, and the police officers want Chief Hayden. So while we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's, I just hope the councils will listen to their constituents and speak to the members of the police force, because the vast majority of the people in this city want Bob Hayden to lead the Brockton Police Department for the next year. And that's where we need to end up at the end of the day.
We had Brockton City Council President Robert Sullivan on the program earlier today for our one-year anniversary broadcast, and he mentioned that you had withdrawn a lawsuit which was filed against the City Council in relation to his appointment of one particular person.
Yeah, you
to
actually
the Brockton
slightly
Water Commission.
misstated that because I filed the civil complaint not immediately after his appointment of Kate Archett. I filed it after Councilor Sullivan announced he was going to make a second appointment to the commission. That was the trigger. But I think we've tried to put that behind us now, Peter. I mean,
Do you regret doing it, or
no? But I think that. But I also think that withdrawing it was the right thing to do because it became, evident to me that forcing that issue was going to make it difficult to get other work done, and the folks elected me, and they elected the members of the council to tackle some of the major issues facing our city, and I thought that. It made more sense for us to put that behind us and focus on much larger issues that are facing us. That the council and the mayor have to work together. We can't get anything accomplished if we don't work together. And so it was a gesture on my part to show the council that I do want to work together, and I was willing to put that behind us and move on to far more important things that we need to get going on behalf of the residents of the city.
This question might sound a bit self-indulgent, but hell, it's our one-year anniversary broadcast, so I'm going to do it.
And God only knows if you'll be around for a second.
Exactly.
One,
so, he's speaking the truth, folks. So we had Bob Hayden on our program a few months back, and during the course of the interview, I asked him about the fact that he has cancer, and some people were raising questions about his health in relation to whether or not he could do
Which,
the
by
job.
the way, and I just want to, and I'll let you ask the question, but he's always answered the questions honestly, and he never, ever, for 1 minute, attempted to conceal the fact that he was battling cancer. So, it's a fair question to ask, and people want to know about it. He told them, but, I think sometimes people tried to give the impression that, like this was some new discovery. He told everyone from day one he had cancer.
And when I asked him about it, he said, I respect cancer. This is my Bob Hayden impersonation, by the way. I respect cancer, but I don't fear it. Yeah. And I said, what a great T-shirt that would make with his face on the shirt. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody is in the process of putting together this T-shirt that's going to benefit charity.
So what I've heard is there's an organization called Hope, the Hope Fundraiser, which takes place in April at the Shaw Center. The proceeds, it's a charity that supports cancer patients, and they're going to print up T-shirts with Chief Hayden's quote on there, just as the way that you repeated it, and put them on T-shirts and sell them as part of the fundraiser at the Shaw Center in April, and I plan to buy at least a couple of them.
Well, if I came up with an idea that's going to benefit a cancer charity, I think this first year has been at least
there
worth
you go.
it, right, Mike?
Yeah, there you go.
At least successful in that round.
At least successful in that round.
It was a great idea, and folks latched onto it. To be honest with you, I think they'll sell a ton of those T-shirts that night.
Well, we'll
So I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but it's a Friday in April, I believe, at the Shaw Center.
Is it the 12th?
Yeah.
I believe that I hope you know that means Chief Hayden has to come on our show again to discuss.
Oh, absolutely. And they've invited Chief Hayden to the Hope fundraiser where they're going to sell the T-shirts with his quote, and he's accepted the invitation.
In our in-depth interview with him, people don't even realize we didn't scratch the surface of what we can get into this guy's background. Off the air, he told us some great stories.
You could spend hours. He is, there was a nice reception held for him a little over a week ago at the Marlowe Lounge downtown. And, he was the guest of honor. And when I introduced him, I said, people always ask me how do I describe him. And I finally figured out the easiest way to describe him is I tell people he's Clint Eastwood because he's the oldest guy in the room, but he's still the toughest guy in the room. And no one will still mess with him no matter how old he is. And that's what he is. He has that persona. He has that presence and of fearlessness and toughness. And, he's not a guy you would mess with even at the age of 71.
Is he the best arm wrestler in the City Hall? I'm here.
Well, yeah, he can handle newbie. We've established that. I'm not foolish enough to try to arm wrestle him. He's got some pretty big guns on him.
Well, Bill, I want to thank you so much for joining us here.
He lifts weights behind his desk,
Does he really?
He really does. This is a true story. I was over at the police station the other day. He has whatever you call hand dumbbells. He has 2 sets of them on the floor behind his desk. And a few times a day, he'll reach down, and while he's sitting at his desk, he lifts weights while he's at his desk.
He's
an amazing guy. He's an amazing guy. No, he really does. He sits there and does curls with dumbbells while he's at his desk.
Bill,
71 years old. Bill,
I'm going to need one of those wireless headsets for the phone. This holding the phone is interrupting my
It's pretty. Hey, can I want to mention the job fair.
Oh, absolutely.
Real quick,
Two things. There's a job fair going on this weekend.
So I know that Bob was already here yesterday promoting it, but seeing as you dragged me over here, I'll take advantage of the
drag him. He came running.
Yeah. Well, he's a little ticked off because you fed Newbie today. Yeah. Thursday night, 5 to 8 at the War Memorial. Anyone that's looking for work in the construction field, we have a CWC, one of the two general contractors, working on the Trinity Financial Project downtown. Obviously, that major construction project that's going on where the radio station used to be. We've got them coming in and holding an informational job fair. It's not a guarantee of a position, but it's a commitment that I asked them to make to give Brockton residents the inside track on jobs there. So there will be job applications. There'll be representatives of the company. There'll be representatives of the unions. There is some union positions and some non-union positions, but they will be advising as to, what jobs they expect to be filling and when they'll be filling them. And you'll have an opportunity to fill out your application and get an inside track on those positions before they go outside to hire. So anyone that's a Brockton resident that's looking for work in the construction field should be at the War Memorial Building Thursday evening from 5 to 8 for the construction job fair hosted by the folks building the Trinity Financial Project.
And one thing with you being mayor that I'm sure you know is you have to deal with the big issues and deal with the little issues, which can create big issues. And one little issue which can create big issues for people's vehicles is potholes.
Potholes. Potholes are a huge issue now. I mean, they're not just particular to Brockton, I'll tell you. I was at a mayor's meeting a couple weeks ago, and every single mayor in the room was crying about the potholes in their cities. So the weather conditions this winter, we had a tough winter. A lot of extremely cold temperatures, a lot of snow and ice, and now we've had this extended late winter, early spring of constantly sub-freezing warm-up that's just tearing up the streets. And we know we've got a big issue with potholes. So we have crews out there working on them. We've designated a crew as the pothole response team, and we've actually set up a hotline. So if you're aware of a particularly bad or dangerous pothole that needs immediate attention, we have a number for you to call, 508-897-1306. 508-897-1306. Leave a message with the exact location. Give us a street number, a landmark. I mean, don't make us drive all over town looking for it. Give us a good location, and we are sending these out to the response team every day, and they will get priority treatment. We'll get a crew out to address it as quickly as we can. So we have several crews working across the city every day. Every available person in the highway department has been assigned to these pothole crews right now to try to address it. But we have put together a response team that will respond to the complaints, and folks can just call in 508-897-1306, and we will respond to get that pothole addressed as quickly as we can.
Bill, any final words for our listeners before we let you go here on this Tuesday morning?
Oh, I want to congratulate you and Mike, PM and the AM for a full year, and I mean, I've known both of you guys since you were kids, so I mean I'm feeling pretty old myself. But it's great to see you in here, and every morning it's the radio station is a very important part of life in the city here. So I'm looking forward to being on with you on a regular basis.
Well, thank you so much, and Mike, we've continued a Bill Carpenter tradition this morning. Mike, we're late for news, aren't we?
Of course.
Yes. Did I run over again? What were the odds?
You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM and the AM. Local news, then Betsy Zulis joins us in studio. Stick with us.